So here we are in Bachman Park, lovely Bachman Park in Los Gatos, and believe it or not, there's a small sliver of land that belongs to Monte Sereno. Well, we'll get to that in a minute. So many questions about Monte Sereno. I'm sitting next to another attorney. I don't know how many attorneys there are in Monte Sereno. Maybe we should have that as a census question. Maybe it already is, and get the count on that. But I'm sitting next to one, former city council member, former two-time mayor, and his name is Marshall Anstandig.
Hello, Lisa.
I'm so honored.
Thank
because
you.
you were on city council for many years.
10 years.
10 years. I guess is it a good thing to be termed out?
Yes, it was.
Were you ready?
I was ready, yes.
So let's go back in time. And you were the one who told us that there's a sliver of land here in Bachman Park that belongs to Monte Sereno. So where exactly is that? You can just point.
Well, it's actually beyond the park.
It's beyond it.
Yeah, so the park is all Los Gatos, but but if you go to the end of Bachman Avenue, that's that last cul-de-sac. There's about 5 or 6 homes there. That's all Monte Sereno.
And that's where you live?
That's where I live, yes.
And then are you surrounded by Los Gatos on all 4 sides or 3 sides?
Yes, we can't escape without going. We can't escape without going through Los Gatos. So yeah.
How does that happen? Who zoned it like that?
Somebody, you know, if you look at looking at zoning maps, it's like what we're talking about these days with congressional districts being redrawn. You know, somebody with a pencil decided this would be a great place to draw the boundary, which is crazy.
And that was before 1947?
Yeah, before.
So way before that became a city.
Right.
And you were telling me you moved here from Michigan and you were told by the realtor you were living in Los Gatos.
Yes, when I moved here from Arizona, and I was told by the realtors that that the home was in Los Gatos, and I was surprised when I saw the survey that came in that said that no, this is Monte Sereno, and I thought, oh well, okay, that's good.
Did you know there was a Monte Sereno?
Well, I didn't know. No, I didn't
at that time.
At the time, it didn't really matter. The house was great, and it was close to downtown Los Gatos, and that was ideal.
Exactly. I was talking to my son-in-law who lives in the Bay Area, and I was telling them about this living history project in Monte Sereno, and he says, "Where's Monte Sereno?" And I said, "What?" And I tried to explain it because he's of course been to my house many times in Los Gatos. He did not know where Monte Sereno, and I think a lot of people, they see the sign on Highway 9, but it's like, okay, where is it?
Right, right. Well, it's hard. It's a small geographic, town, and it doesn't have distinct boundaries. Number 2, and then there's not that many people, and it's between Saratoga and Los Gatos, which many people know about.
Right.
But Monte Sereno has its own unique character for sure.
So let's talk about that unique character. How would you describe Monte Sereno to somebody?
Well, it's a great community in many respects. We have a very diverse community.
Although many attorneys.
Many attorneys, but a lot of ethnic background of a lot of the people that live here, and a lot of people in a variety of industries, professional people, typically very well educated and very affluent. The demographics of Monte Sereno are really quite good, and we also have a population that's pretty stable. They just don't move. I mean, they come here and live here and like it, and particularly like the rural, semi-rural nature of where they live, and like the fact that they're not close to any businesses. It's just a quieter place to be.
Do you think that will ever change?
Well, I think one of the things that I tried to preserve while I was on Site and Architecture Commission first and then City Council was trying to preserve the lack of big developments. And one of those was obviously the La Hacienda property. And it wasn't so much to just stop development, but it was to do good reasoned development, and that was really my goal, and one of the things that I wanted to see maintained about this community because it was so unique.
Did you get your wish? How do you consider that little plot of 36 units?
It wasn't my choice. I voted against it. I actually voted years ago. I struck a compromise where we would have permitted the developer to build, a number of multiple homes there, or apartments or condominiums, but within a much smaller density than exists today. And when I go by it today, I'm really disappointed at how it looks. And frankly, most people that I talk to, forgetting about the number of units that are there, they just don't think it really fits.
Do you think it's going to open the door for more multi-use buildings now? Not multi-family buildings, I guess would be the correct word, more duplexes and more maybe 4 family units.
That was one of the things that people had a very great concern about. And, we did the zoning in such a way that it would be just limited to that property. But it has spawned a lot of interest in other people because you put 2 lots together and there's the ability to build more homes there. And that's, that can change, but thus far I think it hasn't happened.
You ever think you're going to get back on city council, or are you done?
I think I'm done. I think I'm done. I served my time, and I volunteered and then ran twice, and it was fun doing that. And it was at a time that there were some significant issues at the time that were really quite important, I thought.
So let's go back to the very beginning. You move here. You don't really know anybody, I don't think. I mean,
I moved here because I was getting relocated. Knight Ridder was moving its corporate headquarters from Miami to San Jose, and I was hired out of private law practice in Arizona to join the corporate staff on heading in my particular area of law. And I moved from Phoenix here, and I didn't really know anybody except some of the Knight Ridder people.
You got involved pretty quickly, though.
I did.
How did that happen?
Well, I got involved, I was out walking my dog one day and somebody walked by and they said, you live in that house, right? And I said, yeah. And they said, well, you're right on the path that's between Bachman and Oakhurst. Or Oak Ridge, or Oakhurst, I guess. Oakhurst, sorry.
You obviously need to take another walk on that street.
You need to the name of the street, Oakhurst. And the city was interested in trying to, by eminent domain, turn that into public space. And it was on my property. And and there were a number of areas in the city where they were trying to do this. And the mayor at that time, I can't remember who it was a woman, but they were trying to do this around the city. And these people asked me if I would be a spokesperson against that, because that was my opinion. So that was the first time I went to City Hall for a meeting. And it was a packed house. And after the mayor spent probably about 20 minutes talking about the attributes of that policy, she said, we'll give everybody a 2 or 3 minute limit to talk about their views on this. And I stood up and said, that's unfair. And somebody told me that I was out of order. I think it was Brian, at that time the city manager.
Yeah.
And I said, I think she was out of order because she's not giving us enough time to talk about what we want to say.
You're a rabble-rouser to begin with.
Yeah, so I had my say, the issue was dropped, and I was happy about that. But that's how it sort of got started.
And then you first started on what most cities call a planning commission, but of course it's Monte Sereno. So we have a fancier name for it. What is it? Site and architecture?
Site and architecture, yes. So I was appointed to that and served on that for about a year and a half. Ultimately became chairman of it. And that was great. I really enjoyed that. We would go visit the various applicants' houses and homes and sites to try to determine, was the plan consistent with what the city wanted. And it was really very good. And not only that, but I think what we were able to do, which I was very proud of, was to encourage people to go talk to your neighbors about what you want to do before you just submit an application, to try to gain some support and make people happy if that's the case. So that being the circumstance, I decided that I thought it was a really good accomplishment.
That is a great idea, letting people know their neighbors. Your neighbors matter. Talk to them. When I did a little research on you, I found you to be very, very ethical. That seems to be your middle name. And you have strived for ethics in Monte Sereno.
I've tried my best, yes. Yeah, I've tried my best. I always, I think growing up, was something my parents taught me was very important. and you know, being a lawyer and, you know, taking the oath and passing bar exams and things like that, I always have considered that to be very important.
So you got on city council.
Yeah, so I was asked to apply for it, and I did, and there were a couple other people whose names were there, and I was appointed to fill the vacancy, the remaining part of his term, which was about a year and a half. And then I decided to run for office at the next election, which was in 2008.
You know what surprises me a little bit about Monte Sereno, and I've, for most of my life, lived in the big city of San Jose, you have a lot of angst and turmoil for such a sweet, quiet city of so few people. What is that about?
Well, I think you know, there is a lot of that. And when I got on the council, the Paget case was pending.
Tell a little bit. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, it started out as just a fence violation. I think his fence was too high, and they asked him to take it down, and it turned into basically a huge fight. And
yes.
He filed a lawsuit in federal court, and you know, it went back and forth on appeal.
Nasty.
Very, very contentious. And he was very controversial, and you know, the decision that the city made in pursuing him and the fence issue became a controversial issue that cost the city a lot of money in legal costs.
I think it was like $4 million, which is like double your annual budget, if I'm correct.
Yeah, it was huge. And you know, we had insurance that covered part of that, but that's still not the issue. I just think it's a community where people know about the law and they know about access to the courts, and typically most people have enough, you know, financial wherewithal to be able to file a lawsuit, and he did, and he won on some of his claims. You know, not very many of them, but just primarily on a defamation claim against one of the former council people. But nevertheless, you know, it was a mess, and my understanding is it still may be pending.
I think it is.
I think there was
I don't
still
think
an
it's all
issue.
been resolved.
There was still an issue out there that it was still pending. But beyond that one, we didn't have too many other lawsuits other than the litigation over La Hacienda. That and also, I shouldn't say that and also the church property. I forgot about the church.
Yes, that's right. I think those were the three biggies. The Baptist church property with the low-income housing, I think, was one of the issues.
Apartments.
Apartments,
yes.
And then, of course, the Hacienda development and the fence,
yeah.
the Paget fence.
Yeah.
So, how many years were you on? 8 years?
I was total, it was nine and a little bit, almost 10 years.
What were the types of issues that brought a full house into a city council meeting?
Well, anything relating to La Hacienda did.
and was that because people love the restaurant so much too?
They did. People, you know, kind of liked it the way it was, and really just said, leave it alone. You know, but it was getting tired and needed some renovation, and something needed to be done there. That was a packed house. Talking about the church property was a packed house. Talking about the issue about annexing property was the other, you know, that place they had people outside, and outside the city council chambers.
Yeah.
And people were had very strong opinions about annexation. So those three issues were probably the biggest ones that I can remember.
You know, I always felt that piece of land, and I don't know what the acreage was on the Hacienda property.
About approximately 4 acres.
I always thought, once I found out the Hacienda was closing, and remember I grew up in this area and I ate there quite often, I thought somehow that was going to end up like a little strip shopping center or something, but that was never entertained, was it?
No, for my first involvement, the developer, Russ Stanley, had a variety of plans. One was a senior citizen apartment kind of complex, and then he had a couple other ideas. And that was when I was on site in architecture, and he was trying to promote some of those ideas. And I listened to him, and frankly, I thought that all of them were way too dense, and in terms of the amount of structures. And we, you know, from that point forward, it, you know, turned into one kind of piece of litigation. 3 times we were sued, and we won 2 of them and lost. We didn't really lose the last one, but we did have a public records request we had to pay some money on, but it was protecting the security and the confidentiality of people's housing plans that he wanted access to. Never looked at them, but wanted access to them.
Yeah. So, looking back, with your 23 years you've been here, something like that?
23 years.
23 years. I mean, what stands out in your mind? I mean, maybe some of the history that we're not really aware of, maybe some little secrets, nuances we don't know about. We would love to hear about them. You know, I always have my ear ready for gossip.
Yeah. Well, you know, the one thing about public government is that you're not supposed to have too much gossip.
And no secrets.
The Brown Act covers most
There's an
of
attorney
that.
speaking for you.
Yeah. And we were really careful about that. I mean, we would pick Brown Act buddies on particular issues and communicate about those. I think when I first ran for public office, there was a big push by, at that time, the mayor and another council person to bring in the county as the police authority. And, and that was an issue that I felt very strongly about, because the police department, the contract we had with Los Gatos was, I thought, an excellent contract, and it was working very well. And they had officers that were in the schools and knew the kids, and to bring in the county just seemed to me to be unnecessary. And when I went around campaigning door to door for my council seat, it was, except for one house with somebody whose kid had been arrested by the local police for DUI.
Didn't want anything to do with them.
Didn't want anything to do with the local PD. Wanted the county, but everybody else was 100%. We want to keep the police department. And that was a really big issue. That, number one. And then the other one was that I got on the council, and one of the first things they wanted to vote for was to pay themselves money to be on the council. And I said, we do spend a lot of time on issues, but there's no reason in the world why we should be voting ourselves a pay increase. That's what people complain about in Congress. And, I said, I don't have a problem voting it for the next people, but we shouldn't be voting it for ourselves.
And it's never been approved, has it?
It was approved.
Oh,
it was approved, and for 2 years, until we could bring it up again, we all got paychecks.
Not a stipend, this was considered salary.
It was a check that we got. I think it was based, I don't think it was based on the meetings we attended. I think it was like $150 a month, something like that. And I endorsed every one of my checks to the YWCA and gave it to them, because I didn't want, I volunteered.
Right.
It was totally wrong that I should be paid and vote myself a pay increase. You just can't do that. If you're chairman of a company, it's one thing, but not when you're a volunteer on a government.
So there are no stipends for city council?
No,
nothing.
Just reimbursements. And,
okay.
Unlike Los Gatos, where they have health care for the council people after they leave, for the rest of their lives.
I did not know that.
Which is a huge benefit.
Yes.
At least it was. I don't know if it's still in effect, but it was. There was nothing that, well, I shouldn't say nothing. It was actually, I felt really privileged to be able to serve the community, but we didn't have anything, that was a lingering effect or lingering benefit.
Well, there we go back to the ethics again. The ethics, your middle name.
Yeah, well, there were two of us voted against. Sue Garner was the other person, and Sue and I voted against the pay. There were 3 people that voted for it, and that was it. So.
So, to sort of end our talk, what is maybe your legacy in Monte Sereno, or maybe what do you want Monte Sereno's legacy to be? Because you're separate from Los Gatos. There's no doubt about it. Your name is on the police cars and things like that, but you're your own entity, your own city. What legacy? Tell me a little bit.
Well, I think the legacy should be, or I hope it is, that it continues to try to serve the interests of the citizens in a way that maintains the integrity of the community the way it was intended to be, which was to be a kind of rural, kind of remote community. I think the challenge with that is what the state is trying to do, enforcing these housing numbers, which, in a community like Monte Sereno that doesn't have public transportation, that doesn't have employment, there are no jobs in the city. other than working for the city council.
Exactly.
That's you know, that's important. So the legacy, you know, I wish it was more like it was. I mean, one of the things I'm very disappointed with, I know you didn't ask me this, but I'll say it anyway.
Please.
Is the employees there unionized after we got off the council.
Reading that.
Which is just terrible.
And there's how many employees? Like 8?
4.
Oh, 4.
And why did they do that? They did that because they had a mayor and they had one city council person at least who was just absolutely difficult to work with, and they caused the city attorney, the city manager, and one of the people that was doing surveys, doing not the surveys, but compliance checking, you know, with the zoning requirements and building requirements, to leave. They were very unhappy. They were all very competent people, including the city clerk. All those people quit and resigned, and the couple remaining people said, we need a union to protect us because of the arbitrary nature of the mayor and this one council person who's since resigned. But that to me is the legacy that shouldn't exist. The legacy, the way things were. Everybody on the staff got along well. It was like a nice family. And I think citizens were treated well. And that's the way in which I think good city government should work.
It's been great talking to you. I've learned a lot, and like I said, I'm very honored to sit with you. You've got this very calm approach to everything. Although I guess you could get angry, right?
Well,
you had your moments.
No, we all did. I mean, there were a lot of strong feelings about a variety of the issues, and they were hotly contested. So yeah, we did get a little emotional, but we always treated everybody with respect, and that was I think always a key part of how we tried to conduct meetings and so on.
And what I've realized about everybody I've talked to when it concerns Monte Sereno, they love it, no matter what.
Yeah.
They love it. It will always be their home, whether or not they're still there. That's where their fond memories are.
Yeah, very
so
true.
There you go. There you go. Marshall Anstandig, and it's been wonderful talking to you, and I hope we see you around town.